Hey guys, I'm Elan. I'm going to be talking to you guys about what's new with Alchemy today. So quick roadmap of the presentation. Going to start off with a little bit about me. Then I'll kind of jump into some background information about Alchemy for anyone who doesn't know. And then we'll kind of get into what we came here for, what's new, what are we working on. Cool. So for starts, I'm Elan. I actually graduated from Stanford University, class of 2020. I study computer science, I have an engineering background. And my previous jobs prior to joining Alchemy, kind of three main pieces here. One, I was a food runner at a Michelin-star restaurant in New York City. The second one was a software engineer at Facebook. And then lastly, a software engineer at Instagram, also Facebook. My journey to Alchemy was actually a bit serendipitous. I was on track to get my master's degree from Stanford in sustainability, a topic that I'm super, super passionate about. Then kind of COVID happened and I took a right turn and ended up on Alchemy. So quite fortunate. And interestingly enough, prior to joining Alchemy about a year and a half ago, I actually didn't know anything about crypto or the blockchain space at all. Really only knew Bitcoin as a buzzword, didn't even know what Ethereum was. And have since become extremely bullish, as I'm sure most of you guys are as well, and even started my own side hustle called Crypto Creamery, bridging my passion for both crypto and ice cream. Huge, huge fan of ice cream. And so if you're interested in Crypto Creamery, feel free to follow on Instagram at Crypto Creamery. Cool. So what do I actually do at Alchemy? I don't make ice cream full time. My role is actually working on developer experience. And what does that mean? It really means the end-to-end. I know Patrick probably touched on this a little bit before this, but the end-to-end experience on building with Alchemy and building in the Web3 space in general. And our top line goal when it comes to developer experience is empowering developers to actually build on the blockchain and make that process really seamless for them. Cool. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to jump into some background about Alchemy. So first and foremost, fundamentally, we're leading blockchain developer platform. What this means is a comprehensive developer platform. And this fundamentally breaks up into kind of two components. Number one is infrastructure and node API. And then number two is developer tools. And I'll talk a little bit more about what those each mean. So, a little bit of background info. We're really fortunate to be surrounded by some amazing investors, both across many industries, entertainment, tech, you name it, who've kind of helped advise us and guide us along the way. We have a world-class engineering and product team who are sort of bringing their expertise from a lot of the top renowned Web2 companies, in addition to a lot of the top universities, and kind of bringing that expertise into Web3. And in the Ethereum space, we actually power a lot of the top companies, again, across a couple different verticals. So DeFi, Yearn Finance, and UIDX, NFTs like OpenSea, and infrastructure companies like The Graph. Cool. We've had over $35 billion in on-chain transactions over the course of the year, powering 50 million end users worldwide, and actually in the majority of the countries around the world, which is a really, really cool thing to see that there's a lot of activity in Web3 already. We also power all major NFT platforms. You can check out this article on Bloomberg about that. And in addition to the majority of DeFi, as we talked about before. Cool. So jumping into the mission of Alchemy, what is our goal? What is our kind of like main mission here? And that's actually to bring blockchain to 1 billion people. And I know that's kind of a large goal. So how do we actually go about tackling this goal? Well, we're going to work our way backwards, right? So we start with 1 billion people. And when I say users here, I mean my grandma, my mother, the layman, any kind of sort of consumer who maybe is calling an Uber right now or using Netflix or whatever that might be. So these are sort of the end users we want to bring blockchain to. And when we work this problem backwards, we start with our users, but how do we actually get these users to use those applications? Well, we have to build products that they want and that they care about, right? There has to be products that they're incentivized to use in order to get them to use them. But really, if you take a step even further down, the products part really starts with developers, right? So the beginning of this cycle here is developers. In order to get users to be using blockchain apps, we need to build blockchain apps they want, and that starts with developers building those applications. So this can be a really, really key challenge, especially for new technologies, right? Teaching developers how to build on these new technologies and getting that sort of adoption really quickly can be really, really difficult. And that's really where Alchemy is pouring its focus into. Our main goal is to make this process in this cycle of users really, really seamless and make that super easy for developers to start building. Cool. And I know I'm probably preaching to the choir here. I know a lot of the audience is blockchain developers themselves, but there are a lot of challenges when it comes to blockchain development. And one of the key ones is that, blockchain development right now is like building a website in the 90s. There's a lot of boom. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of things going on, but there is a core lack of kind of resources and tooling, which is kind of where Alchemy and folks like Chainlink are coming in and helping. And one analogy that we like to use is these sort of like archaic functional tools can actually build you a home that is archaic and functional, right? You have something that works. You can have a product that works. It might not be the nicest, it might not be the most feature heavy or sophisticated, but it does kind of work. However, if you bring in these real deal construction equipment, kind of sophisticated tools and resources, you can start to build cities and skyscrapers and all of these products that are much more sophisticated and attractive to end users. So that's what Alchemy set out to do, right? We want to empower builders to bring the magic of blockchain to the world. We want to give these people the tools, resources, and infrastructure they need to start to build these sophisticated applications. And so what does that mean? How are we actually doing it? Well, we're a blockchain developer platform. And I want to jump into kind of our core products here. And there's about 6 of them that are kind of the most important. But before jumping into that, I want to quickly touch on what the challenges of running nodes are, right? So I talked before about how Alchemy is a node API and infrastructure, and then developer tools, right? So let's talk about this kind of node API and infrastructure thing first. There are a couple of challenges when it comes to running nodes. Number one is downtime. Nodes can take weeks to sync and they can go down, right? So if you kind of spin up a node and you send a bunch of traffic to it, it can have a lot of downtime. Upgrades can cause nodes to have downtime, right? The other thing is scaling. So like I said, these nodes can take up to weeks to sync. Let's say I have one node, it's running, it's doing great for all my users. I wake up the next day and my app went viral and all of a sudden I have 1 million people sending traffic. I have to wait a whole other week to load balance and spin up that new node. So there's a scalability issues when it comes to nodes when you have a traffic spike here. And that's kind of one thing that Alchemy solves is we are handling that scalability and node downtime. And the third thing here, which I think is really, really important, is data correctness. I think this is also what distinguishes Alchemy from a lot of the other kind of node APIs and infrastructure companies out there, is that you can't really just throw a load balancer on top of a bunch of nodes and then call it a day, right? And let's talk about a quick example here. So let's say I'm a user, I query a node API that's load balanced, right? And maybe I go to node 1 and that kind of gives me back block 100. Now, let's say my user who's using the same application queries that load balancer, but they get blocked 102 because they went to a different node, right? Nodes are not necessarily always in sync. So this can be extremely, extremely challenging and a difficult problem to solve because you want to make sure you're feeding consistent and correct data. So this is something that Alchemy also solves through our Supernode product, right? So now kind of jumping into what our products are. Supernode is a higher level infrastructure that we built out over the course of a couple of years to solve all of these really core problems when it comes to blockchain infrastructure, right? So we kind of solve node scalability and the data incorrectness and the reliability problem. And I won't go into too much detail about how this works, but happy to talk about it later if you guys are interested. The second major product that Alchemy has is Alchemy Build. And this product was really meant for you to kind of understand what's going on in your applications and debug really easily. So we offer things like, visualizations of your historical requests. You can see a mempool in the UI of your Alchemy dashboard. So you're able to see mined, dropped, pending transactions right there in the UI. And you can also compose requests straight from the browser. The third tool here is Alchemy Monitor. And really the crux of Monitor and the goal behind Alchemy Monitor, it's a suite of tools, is so that you can catch issues before your users do. So the worst case scenario is that a user is reporting a bug before you even know about it. And that's really what Alchemy Monitor was here set out to do. So these are things like performance and user insights, usage analytics. So like, hey, I'm getting this huge spike. Maybe I need to be aware and figure out what's going on. And then application health alerts. So if you all of a sudden get a bunch of invalid requests, you're sending a bunch of invalid requests, we'll ping you and say, hey, look out for this, like something might be up in your code. So, all tools for monitoring. The next product I'll talk about is Notify. And so Alchemy Notify was really built to bring the experience of Web 2 into Web 3, right? So let's take a quick example. You don't see me here kind of refreshing my email, waiting for an email to come in, right? I'm not just sitting there waiting for it to come in. I get a notification and then I know, oh shoot, I should check my email because I got this notification. Right now, that experience isn't really met in Web3, right? People are just sort of waiting in their MetaMask until it's kind of live and ready. But in reality, users should be getting notifications for when things are ready. And so that's what Alchemy Notify is there for. It's notifications for your transaction status, address updates, and even kind of gas price changes. Second to last product here, enhanced APIs. So this is a suite of APIs we built on top of the standard Ethereum JSON RPC and other chains as well. And so, one specific API I like to call it here is the transfers API. And so this API allows you to fetch historical requests from Genesis to latest when it comes to your kind of transfer activity. And so you can imagine this saves tons and tons of engineering time for something that is relatively basic, right? If I'm a wallet app, I'd probably want to have my user be able to see their historical transactions prior to this. And so with the transfers API, they can really do that in one request. Cool. And the last product I'd like to talk about, one that's kind of extra special to me, is Alchemy Amplify. It's something that I started with my colleague, Paul. And this is sort of go-to-launch partner for Web3 products. So we've talked to a lot of projects in this space, and time again, I've found that they're just kind of a group of developers just hacking away at some amazing technology. And maybe they don't really want to spend time, or maybe they don't have the time to spend on their go-to-market and launch strategy. So we basically built out Alchemy Amplify to help all Alchemy users with their go-to-market launch strategy. This includes things like writing personal customer spotlights for them, sharing out their launches on Twitter, sending them to our investors, whatever that might be, just generally giving a helping hand in their go-to-market strategy. Cool. So now what we came here for, what's new with Alchemy? To start, I'd just like to say that Alchemy ships pretty quickly. So in the past 2 months, we've already launched 3 new chains, 9 new API endpoints, 5 new tutorials, and 1 new dashboard product. And you can actually see a list of updates in real time on our updates page on our website. And so, we're a pretty small team right now, but we are shipping very quickly and are churning out new products left and right. That said, I'm not going to spend the remainder of this presentation going through a laundry list of things that we've launched in the past 2 months. I think that'd be quite boring. So I want to jump into something that's been really top of mind for Alchemy and our product roadmap and our team in general recently. And that's multi-chain. And I know this is probably going to be a recurring theme throughout this conference. I know Patrick touched on it a little bit before too. But why multi-chain? Why is this something that has been driving Alchemy's product roadmap and it's something that's really, really important to us? Well, in order to answer that question, let's kind of take a look back in time. And I'd like to start off by just saying Ethereum is leading, right? We've had 6 years on mainnet. As we talked about, Solidity is one of the most popular blockchain developer languages. 500 billion peak market cap and 160 million unique active addresses on Ethereum. And of course, 200,000 active developers building on Ethereum. So that's really huge, right? And that's hard to compete with when it comes to a blockchain ecosystem. However, as we all know, Ethereum isn't perfect. Just this past spring, the average transaction fee hit $70, right? So that's not the max transaction fee. That was the average on a given day. And that's kind of unacceptable when it comes to like sending transactions and actually bringing blockchain to 1 billion people. Similarly, as we all know, block time can be anywhere between 12 and 15 seconds. That also means that there's not a lot of transaction throughput on Ethereum. And then lastly, in any given day, Ethereum is hitting at a max, at its peak this past spring was 1.7 million transactions per day. To give you a little bit of context, Visa alone is doing 150 million transactions in a day. So we're orders of magnitudes away from meeting the traditional transaction kind of platforms that we're using. That said, we are working on it, right? Ethereum has solutions for all these things. EIP 1559 came out, this past week with predictable gas fees. ETH 2.0 is, the longer term solution for Ethereum, giving it higher throughput through sharding. It's more secure, it's more sustainable. There are solutions to these problems that Ethereum is facing right now. However, developers need solutions right now, right? And that's where this multi-chain stuff comes in, right? We can't really wait around for ETH 2.0 when we're trying to get mass adoption quickly. So if we take a look at some of the top 10 DeFi applications, we can already see that the vast majority of them have made announcements or even started building and launched in multi-chain. So you can see that the top applications are recognizing this need and acting on it. And so why multi-chain, right? Let's take a direct comparison. So we're looking at Polygon right now, daily transaction count. And remember, Ethereum was 1.5. Polygon at peak is 9.8. Obviously, these are peaks, but it just kind of shows you already almost 10 times as much on the max day when looking at kind of transactions per day. In addition, Arbitrum, 4,000 transactions per second. That comes out to 345 million transactions per day. That's almost double, or a little over double of what Visa can handle. And yes, these are Reddit type workloads, so maybe not as kind of heavy lift as our typical transactions, but it does sort of show you the scale that we can reach when going multi-chain. And then finally, I'd like to give this kind of example. And I'm sorry if this is a little confusing to see, but this is one very, very heavy transaction that happened on the Ethereum layer 1. It's actually a $15,000, over $15,000 gas cost on layer 1. If you translate that same exact transaction, all the same operations on Optimism, it came out to about $61. So it's 254 times less when you use Optimism versus layer 1. You can actually check out that transaction at the link right there. Super interesting. Cool. So what did Alchemy do about this, right? So we started by interviewing hundreds of developers. We were like, okay, obviously there's a really big need here. We need to find out what it is about multi-chain or when it comes to developers choosing a chain ecosystem, right? So we went ahead and interviewed hundreds of developers. And what we came back with time and time again were these 4 user needs. And these were the top ones that kept occurring in our interviews. So number 1 is, and this is, reminder, this is like when evaluating a new chain ecosystem and deciding whether or not you want to move your project there. So number 1 is users, liquidity, lower fees. So what does this ecosystem have that maybe my current one does? Does it have a lot of users? Is there a lot of liquidity for my DeFi app? Are there lower fees when it comes to transaction? That's number 1. Number 2 is a scalable developer infrastructure. So what this means is, if I port over my application to this new chain, and let's say I have a huge spike in usage, is the infrastructure going to scale really easily, and can it handle all of that throughput? Number 3 is developer tools. So, I have a bunch of engineers building this product. Are they going to have the tools and resources in order to support them building that product? Are they going to be able to debug easily and kind of monitor easily, do all those things that they need to do when building applications? And the last one is smart contract portability. So is this chain EVM compatible? Can I just kind of port over my smart contract onto the new chain and it'll just work immediately? Or am I going to have to learn a new coding language and copy all that over and translate it? And so when you think about it, these 2 middle needs are right where Alchemy comes in. The first and the fourth are sort of chain specific, and that's kind of by design and up to them on getting those accomplishments. But as we talked about earlier, Alchemy's bread and butter is infrastructure and developer tools. So we immediately saw this and we're like, okay, this is something that we can actually help out with, right? We already do scalable developer infrastructure and tools on Ethereum. How can we help out with these new chains? And so we went ahead and did it, right? And our goal now for developers in order to support them is to just make multi-chain easy. So what does this mean concretely? We built out in our dashboard a multi-chain toggle so you can easily switch between different chains as you're building. This is a dashboard that a lot of our developers know and love today, and they can have that same experience on the other chains as well. Same here. Rather than spending a bunch of time spinning up new nodes on different chains, you can easily spin up an application in seconds. And so we're bringing Alchemy's core products onto all of these new chains and ensuring that same experience is translated over in these new ecosystems. And so let's do a quick case study. So SushiSwap is one of our applications that we love, and they're big users of Alchemy. And so let's say they weren't using Alchemy, right? They launched their product on Ethereum. They spin up a bunch of Ethereum nodes. It takes a couple of weeks. They build out a load balancer on top, and then they launch the application. But now they're running into some issues on Ethereum, so they want to move over to Arbitrum. Okay, they spin up a bunch of Arbitrum nodes. That takes a couple of weeks. They throw a load balancer on top, and they launch their application. But now let's say there's a bunch of usage on Polygon, and they want to, hey, there's a bunch of users there, let's launch there. So they do the same thing, right? And again, each time they do this process, it takes weeks. And you can see that as you're adding more and more nodes, this can scale to exponential difficulty, right? For your engineers to be maintaining new node clients, upgrading them, making sure they're all good and up to date, can take exponential difficulty here. However, if you use an application like Alchemy, whoops, looks like my screen might have froze here. There we go. If you use an application like Alchemy, this sort of engineering time becomes constant. Your process of running, maintaining, spinning up nodes is really just kind of opening up an Alchemy application. Cool. So just jumping into the last few slides here. Sorry, for some reason, the screen is really laggy. So some of the other things that we're really excited about in multi-chain ecosystem are a lot of new product exploration. So things like layer 2 settlement notifications. Obviously, you really care about if your transaction gets confirmed on the layer 2, but even more importantly is when does that get confirmed on layer 1? So kind of building out notifications around that. And then let's see if these want to work here. Cool. And then a couple of quick next steps, things that we really care about. Number one, education. I think in these new chain ecosystems, there's a lot of work and resources and tools that need to kind of happen to get people up to speed. Community, I know Chainlink really cares about community. We do too. It's something that's super important to get developers building. And then obviously chain specific products like the layer 2 settlement notifications. And then we'll continually explore new chains that developers care about. And the last kind of thought I want to leave you guys on here is that multi-chain is really just the start for Alchemy, right? Our goal is to empower developers to build on the blockchain or to reach that billion users. And multi-chain will fundamentally help developers reach this goal and make it really easy for them. But we're constantly looking for ways to improve developers' lives. So if you have any ideas, ping me in Alchemy Discord, whatever it takes. We really are excited about helping developers. And then this is really just the start. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elan. Your focus and passion for the developer experience for all blockchain devs is really inspiring and awesome. I love that you're solving great problems and making everything easier to understand for everybody. I'll call it from the chat. A few people were saying that, like Albert was saying, Notify is a game changer. So I think there's a lot of excitement for some of the new tools that are coming out.